I'm sure this video won't be controversial at all. Hey, what's up, guys? It's your favorite toucher of things. That sounds so creepy. No, and today I wanted to talk about touch starvation and yeah I don't know. As a guy, I feel sort of very weird talking about things like this because in this day and age, it's kind of very easy to get accused of being an inkwell. But I just want to say, me talking about this does not mean that I think that like I'm owed this or that women or men owe me this. But like yeah, especially for disabled people, and I am a disabled person, touch starvation is a real issue, you know. It's not that we don't get touched, it's that the context in which we get touched oftentimes only revolves around our care. Like, of course, it's different for everyone, you know, if you have a neurodivergency or whatever you may have, like, for example, actual sensitivity to certain types of touch. But what I'm referring to in my case is like, you know, when my caretaker or my mom or my dad has to like pick me up to get me out of bed, and um or like when they're helping me toilet and they're helping me wipe and stuff like that. You know, or when you go to the doctor and they do the reflex tests, or you know, they do your blood pressure. You know, yes, that's touch, but it's not very intimate touch which um in which you feel like you're desired or you're part of a community and stuff like that. Which honestly most people get that through Shreks, don't they? But once again, like, it feels kind of weird talking about this, but we have to be honest about the fact that like, and this, what I'm about to say goes for all genders, all races. If you're disabled, especially if you're physically disabled, um or visibly disabled, this is the case because of course I empathize with people with non-visible disabilities, but like at least you guys can mask it somewhat. We can. Um and but we have to be honest about the fact that like the relationships prospects of a an average person that can walk, that has no major impairments or disabilities, is always going to be much higher regardless of race or gender and stuff like that than someone who is visibly disabled, whatever gender they are, whatever race. um you know, um because people are scared, and it just leads to, well, okay, they're scared and they're uninformed, which is, of course, as we're seeing right now in our society, a very dangerous combo, guys. Like, I'm sure you all would agree, most of you would agree with that. um and yeah, it just leads to a a situation where not only are disabled people um lonely, they're touch starved, guys. From 2013 to around 2016 or 2017, I hadn't even gotten a hug from anyone basically that wasn't my family. I didn't have my first kiss until I was 19, and I surely lost my innocence after that, thankfully. But I was fully expecting there to be just as wide of a gap after that. I'm one of the lucky ones because I was able, I think, to use my intelligence and, relatively okay social skills. They're not the best. I still make mistakes. That happens if you're alienated by society. Um and like, I don't know, I can't even begin to describe um to like even have you to paint a picture of what it was like to not have that. And it, as you guys know, I did have an inkwell phase. I've been completely honest about that in on this channel, and that contributed so heavily to it, guys. It really did. And yeah, I know I'm a man, and it's like, but like, you have to understand that, like, as a disabled person, and like I said, this applies to disabled women, especially visibly disabled women too. Like, it's barely any different. There are a lot of people that say that it isn't, but the most of the time those people have never even like been friends or talked with a disabled woman. Like, it's very similar. Um but yeah, like, that's a part of loneliness, of alienation that most people don't talk about. And the usual solution to that is like, Shrek's work. But here's why I kind of have a a a problem with that. I'm one of the few that disagrees, that doesn't really think that it's a good long-term solution. Um and that's primarily because it doesn't really change the context of the touching. It's like the person deep down knows that this is just transactional, that it's not really based in the feeling of anything. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, and if you read the accounts of Shrek's workers that worked with disabled clients, like in the Netherlands and in some of the Nordic countries and stuff, you'll notice that sometimes they have to, um, like, let the client know, like, hey, I know you're starting to get feelings for me or whatever, but that's not the way, um, this is, right? Like, our relationship is never going to get to that point, which is good. They should do that. That's called establishing boundaries. But the problem that I see with that is that, like, it's more of like a band-aid rather than an actual solution, because the thing is, instead of having adapted sexual education for disabled people and stuff like that, and actually teaching them what it's like to try and build a healthy relationship that has levels of escalation and stuff like that. You just throw them into a sexual experience with no sort of knowledge before that, or if they do get knowledge, it's not adapted knowledge adapted to their needs. And this is the type of situations that you end up in, and it's painful for the actual disabled person going through it. And another thing too is that if you read the literature, it's mostly about men and not women. Of course, I don't think they have a formal like prohibition against men using, I mean, I'm sorry, women using those funds. But did you ever notice that, like look it up, and I would say maybe for every 10 or so stories about disabled men using these services, there are about one for disabled women. And so, it's kind of like a similar point that I made about um the the welfare system generally. Like, instead of saying like, oh, we should try to actually not pay disabled people crap wages, um and actually integrate them into trade unions so that they know their labor rights, and actually help them fight for accessibility within the workplace. No, just take, this stipend to do this and this and that and be happy. But the thing is, once again, it's not necessarily about the touching itself. It's a lot of it is the intimacy of it, the context of the touching. Like, psychologically, it's not really satisfying if you know a person doesn't really want you and this is just their job. And, it fails to really look at the system and the systemic solution, rather than just the individual solution, which I said most of the time also ignores disabled women and stuff like that. Um, and so what would be my solution? Well, my solution is to just have more acceptance of disabled partners as being able to be touched intimately and be partners, and give them the resources starting in school, like everyone else. Like, here's the thing, at least in the United States, they're pretty good about this. In other ways, like, there's adapted everything pretty much except sexual education. And, you know, I'm sorry, but just like with other groups, just like with the abstinence only stuff, that ends up having really bad consequences because of the situations that I just described. So, like, we need better education for us that's actually adapted to our needs, and like asking our caregivers to set us up for these um occasions, and how to effectively communicate with our partners about our conditions and the things that we need with consent, of course. And also just a general societal shift towards accepting, our bodies as um desirable, which, because of the evolutionary and physio-psychological challenges of that, in the meantime, while we get to that point, to me, as I have always said, I think disabled people should, be intimate with and touch each other. And really, just like with other um things in our lives, just really strive to be with each other, because our full acceptance in that arena is gonna take a while. And I don't think it's good for us to be touch starved while that happens. So yeah, I mean, again, if you're disabled, love each other, be intimate with each other, touch each other, embrace each other, and try to build up your community. All right, bye.